Welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health, a podcast of resources for restoring vigor and vitality, bringing you top influencers in the men's health arena, case studies of men who have succeeded and how they did it, and cutting-edge teaching on men's health issues from America's leading men's health guru, Dave Skattum. Get ready to take steps towards good health. Here's your host, Dave Skattum.
Hey, thanks for listening to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health podcast. I so much believe, and I'm so excited and about this new section of my life I'm going through where I'm interviewing guys about their journey to good health. And everybody has this unique story, and it's so inspiring for me to listen to guys tell their story about what's worked, what hasn't worked, and all that stuff, and just get into the good health stuff. And I'm especially excited to have on my show today my son-in-law. His name is Shane Key, and he lives in Seattle area. And Shane, I'm really glad that you decided to come and join me on my podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, so just a little bit about Shane. Shane has been married to my daughter, Heidi, for 10 years, and he's worked for the government for about the last 7 years in the Seattle area. They have 3 kids, Nathan, Noah, and Micah, and I know that Shane's done a great job being a dad and a husband, so I can vouch for him in that area. He's also loves getting out in the gym and working out and being healthy in that way. And he has a real consistent time where he works out, and I think that's a real positive thing. And so looking forward to hearing Shane's perspective on men's health and things that have happened with him in that regard. So Shane, the way I like to start off with these programs is just to get to know you a little bit more. I always like to hear what is getting you out of bed in the morning. What is like on the front burner with Shane Key these days?
So many things. Right now I'm in school full-time getting my bachelor's in information technology. As you mentioned, I have 3 boys, ages 7, 9, and 3. So, I'm constantly trying to keep them alive. Climbing trees, smash a derby with their bikes, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm lucky enough to still be working, and got a ton of projects going on. Seems to get me in trouble more than anything, but lots of projects.
Yeah. With boys, it's like little kamikaze machines, man. They just know how to find disastrous situations, get themselves into. And I've experienced those with you on some of them, so that's great. So that does take up a lot of energy. Hey, I'm kind of like a kind of an amateur history buff. I love getting on Audible and listening to programs on books on history, backgrounds of all different kinds of languages and countries and people groups and all that kind of stuff. But when I think of men's health, my mind kind of naturally goes back to the Greek and Roman era. And I think of these amazing sculptures that take this big chunk of marble and create this what they had in their mind was this perfect image of a perfectly healthy person, perfectly healthy man. And I'm just curious if Shane Key could put a perfectly healthy man up on one of those pillars, what would that man look like, and how would you describe him in a healthy way? What would he look like?
No one's perfect except God. I was originally going to say David. He was this valiant, awesome warrior who just knew the heart of God intimately. But I guess for the sake of originality, I would say someone similar to probably like Jacob. He was a man who had a lot of struggles, especially early on. You know, he was that annoying little brother who always kept taking his big brother's things. And, you know, as he progresses, you know, we watch him working hard for years and years. And he eventually comes to this place where he literally wrestles with God throughout the night, and God gives him this new name.
Yeah. So you see a lot of, tell me a little bit more about with Jacob. I'm just curious about, go a little bit deeper with that. So you see him as an ideal person because he's gone through some struggles and he's wrestled with God and he's gone through some hard times. And so what, in your mind, what makes him a healthy person as opposed to someone else?
Well, I guess it would just be the fact that he has seen, you know, good times and bad times. He has, you know, spent time with God. He has grown, you know, mentally and getting to know who he is and why he is the way he is. And, you know, just all the amount of time he spent working and stuff, you know, just really emphasized, you know, his dedication to himself and to his family and to his well-being.
Yeah, I can sure. I mean, like when you're talking, describing that, I can sure reflect back over my life and think, you know, I went through some my wife and I went through some really rough times financially and different things, but I think if I wouldn't have gone through those things, I wouldn't have learned the things that I did. And even though they were excruciating, I still look back on them and I have like some vivid memories of being in some really bad places. I think if I wouldn't have gone through those, I probably wouldn't have been able to learn and grow and move on from that place and become a better person. So I can sure like reflect on that and agree with you that it is, we do learn a lot of stuff through our struggles. So, all right, that sounds good. So okay, so if Jacob from the scriptures is a healthy man, and he's, you know, through his struggles he's learned and grown from that. You've identified that as being a healthy guy. So if you take the coin and flip it over, and as you look around in your sphere of influence in your place of work or your community, people you know, and you see people around that maybe aren't so healthy, what do you think makes guys unhealthy?
You know, there's a lot of things. Unfortunately, a lot of us just really love to eat, whether that's extra portions, extra steak, dessert, whatever. I think a lot of us struggle with complacency, you know, just being content with, or not content, being complacent with where you are and not really feeling that desire to do more, to be better. You know, whether that's, you know, hey, I don't want to work out today, or I don't really need to eat that salad today, I could do that tomorrow. You know, any of those things. Lack of time management, you know. I think all of us at times can get really caught up into some form of media, whether that's TV shows or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. You know, I think a lot of people are unbalanced in their life. You know, they focus on one of those 4 pillars more than the other, and they can become out of whack, out of balance.
Yeah, I have this memory one time when you're at our house and we're looking through like a photo album of our wedding, my wife and I's wedding, and and we're all kind of like our whole wedding party standing around, And the first comment that you said about that picture was, nobody's looking at their cell phones. And that was like 1985, dude. They didn't even have cell phones back then. I thought that was a pretty interesting comment and how things have so much changed. Anytime you go anywhere, people are like just staring at those things and spending so much time and energy on these devices. And there can be a lot of healthy things that happen there, but there can also be a lot of unhealthy things. So time management and spending so much time on those devices is pretty nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if you look back over your life, I'm just curious. I'm curious about what you're going to say about this. If you look back over your life, and for me, I know there was key times in my life where I can point to these times and say, these were times that like radically changed me. And, one day or at this moment I was heading south, and then this thing happened, whether I met a person or I had a situation that happened in my life or some kind of circumstance came up. And a moment later, I was heading like totally the other direction. I was heading the total opposite direction because of this person I met or the circumstance that happened in my life. Now, when you're looking back over your life, can you point to times like that there was things that had a dramatic impact on you and really like shook you to your core and made you change what you were doing and turn and go a different direction?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of different points in my life where I feel like we're extremely impactful.
Yeah.
I guess the first thing would be attending ECOLA. It's a small Bible college in Oregon where, I just spent a year of my life just reading God's Word and stuff, working on my spiritual pillar. And, just working on that. I'd say, especially with my physical pillar, I would say, getting into my current job, I'm surrounded by a lot of people who work out a lot, and that just really encouraged me to, start pursuing that a little bit better, a little more thoroughly. I think having those workout partners and those accountability partners is really influential in raising you up and making you want to do better.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, so I'm just curious. You said you went to this 1 year kind of a school, like a crash course in spirituality. Mm-hmm. So I think there's so many people that they're struggling with that area of their life. And so tell me about, who you were before you went there, and then who you were after you left that school. And tell me about how you were changed during that time. What were some things that happened to you specifically that changed you into a different person? Describe who you were before and after, and then what were some things that really made you a different person during that time?
I don't know. I'd say the biggest thing that changed was my perspective on life and perspective towards God. I think a lot of us recognize that, that there is something more, but just kind of say, it's just the man up in the sky. Ooh. But, they don't put a lot of emphasis on what that actually means and the impact that has on your life. And, I think that's the biggest thing that changed for me is, I did grow up in a Christian household. I did go to church every week. But just being in that kind of environment just really focused and fine-tuned that portion of my life to where I was like, you know what, there is a purpose for this. There is there's so much more than I ever thought that there would be.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were, like if the Shane Key that went to that school, like in the spring or winter or maybe fall, then you got done in the summer, if those two Shane Keys could stand side by side, how would they be different from each other?
I'd say that the old Shane would probably be a little bit more selfish, a little more caught up in the world. We are, no matter what I do, that opportunity is never going to make me perfect. But I would say that, as far as the perspective and as far as the reliance on the world's acceptance would be the biggest things.
Right. That's great. So tell me, I mentioned this because I'm really curious about this whole change thing. I mean, when you went there to this school, like what your perspective changed? What took away the selfishness? What made you a different person? Can you give? Have you thought much about what the specific things were that happened there? And the reason why, let me just clarify a little bit. The reason why I'm just curious about this is because I know there's people out there listening that are stuck in this place of purposelessness. They don't really know what's the whole deal with God, and they're maybe living in a selfish place. And so what kind of things specifically did you do, or what happened to you that made that change for you?
It was definitely a lot of self-reflection, a lot of time alone. I think that's something that we often struggle with a lot today with, just getting away from everything, getting away from other people. That's one thing that I love about getting out into the woods is that you are completely alone. And you have nothing but nature and your thoughts and God. So, I think it's a really important place to be where you can take the time to get out and really self-reflect, see where you are in this universe, see where you are in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's a common theme I'm picking up on with these interviews I'm doing with people, and that's one of them is just taking time to be meditative, and I think you used the word self-reflection and being time alone. And we live in such a hectic world where it's like get up in the morning and just go, especially like with you with these 3 young boys. And so many of us have such hectic schedules, and sometimes it seems impossible to just take that time to slow down and just think about, where am I at in this life? What am I doing here? Where am I going? And is this really working for me, what I'm doing now? I think that's so critical. And that's what I'm hearing you say that happened to you during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So so here's the last thing. We're about ready to wrap this up. So here's the last thing. So I'm putting a big, huge crown on Shane Key's head. I'm giving you a magic wand, and you can wave this magic wand, make anything happen. But what I want you to do is make the world or make men more healthy. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you do to make men more healthy in this world?
Well, I guess to quote Tom Stencil, I would say to have a global media free time But for myself, I guess I would say, to just give everybody just a brief glimpse of to be able to see who God made you to be, and then where we are in comparison to that. And I guess if I had a second option, I would also say to have every man out there to have some kind of accountability partner or gym partner, somebody to hold them accountable, to hold them to, that they give permission to hold them to certain standards. Because it's one thing to have people around you who are willing to tell you whether you're right or wrong. It's another thing to give them permission to speak into your life. There's always going to be people out there who are willing to trash talk you or correct you in some way, but it's another thing to be willing to listen to those people.
So Shane, my next question is, what in your mind, in your opinion, makes a man healthy?
Well, first and foremost, I think every man needs to be balanced. We need to be spiritual. We need to spend that time with God. We need to take that time alone in self-reflection, which follows into our mental pillar, right? We need to know who we are intimately and be content with who we are, but be willing to work on the areas that we're struggling with. We need to be content with knowing that we are never going to be perfect, but striving towards that better goal. I think we need to be sociable. I live kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's a little hard for me. But we as humans need to be social. We need to be relating to other people, and we need to have those groups of people around us who are willing to build us up, and we're willing to build other people. Mentors and mentees. I think it's crucial for everyone to have one or two mentors, whether that's somebody at your church, whether it's somebody at the gym, whether it's somebody at work. Honestly, it's probably all of those things. And we need to be looking for people, some other people down the line who, we can mentor in some fashion. Because I think that's a struggle that we often have today, where there isn't a lot of mentorship going on right now, at least not as far as I'm seeing. And I think that we need to start seeing a buildup of that a little bit better. We need to be physically healthy, and I honestly don't even care what that means to you. Whether you're a marathon runner, you're a triathlete, you're into yoga, swimming, CrossFit. Personally, I'm into powerlifting. I can't do it as much as I would like to. I'm required to run fairly fast for my job, so I can't necessarily do that to the fullest extent. But you need to be able to get out there, do whatever you got to do, and get it done. And one of my favorite quotes is the only bad workout is the one that didn't happen. So even if you get in there and you're having a terrible day, you do like 4 sit-ups, that's still better than not doing 4 sit-ups. So
yeah, that's right. That's great. Cool. All right. So Shane, we've talked a lot about all these different things. Is there any closing thoughts or ideas that you have regarding health and men's health in particular?
No, I would just say just make sure that you're balanced. If you are struggling in one area or overcompensating in another area, you really need to balance that out. We need to let loose a little. let your wife see you emotionally. That tends to be a big struggle for some people. It is for me. I would say we need to set aside, for me, I've set aside a place to do that. And that's my front porch. When my wife does want to talk to me, she knows to, ask me to go out there, and I can mentally start preparing and shifting my mind to start speaking like that, because that's not something that naturally happens for me. So that's a struggle for me, and that's the way that I've fit that into my little box. I think I very much fall under the assumption that men tend to keep everything in little boxes in their head, and that's my box for my emotional support, I guess, is my front porch. Mm-hmm. So when my wife says, hey, we're going to go out here, I can shift my thoughts to that box, and it's a lot easier for me to do that shift.
You've been listening to The 4 Pillars of Men's Health with Dave Skattum. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit the4pillarsofmenshealth.com.